he had to be captain, which meant that he had to rule as democratically as possible, which was always very important to me in the presentation of Picard and the command situation of the Enterprise, or wherever. But very quickly, and largely because of my experience as a stage actor, and particularly in that I had done a lot of classical work, I knew that the more complex and even contradictory and contrasting a character was, the more human he was likely to be. And it was essential to me from the very beginning that I created a human being and not simply an iconic figure, although of course none of us in Next Generation knew that we were creating iconic figures when we began. And opportunities to show a vulnerable, even at times insecure and weak side of Jean-Luc's personality was everything to me, and I embraced those opportunities as strongly as possible, and indeed often would suggest to Gene while he was alive, and to Rick Berman subsequently, and to the writers, that even where there was not a vulnerability or an uncertainty, that we might create one. Because the humanity of the character, and that every person watching should see something of themselves in him, was all the time very, very important to me. Now, family was important. I have family, brothers, no sisters, I'm sorry. My loss. And therefore creating a world of family was something which I could draw on my own personal experience. And as I think I'm on record saying, the episode with the famous 3 lights, 4 lights sequence was one in which we took advice and counsel from the people at Amnesty International USA, with whom I work and continue to work closely, as well as the people in the UK. And it was very important to me to have an opportunity to express some of those, at least to set up conditions which related to the kind of work that Amnesty International does in the area of human rights. And so in both senses, I'm glad that you remember those episodes, and that I know that they were generally very, very popular. Just for the record, and I've said it many times in the past, my personal favorite was Jonathan Frakes' first show that he directed. I mean, Jonathan walked onto the set an authentic movie director from day one, and now that's his career, and I'm proud to have played a part in establishing what is, I'm sure, going to be a significant, already is a significant directing career for Jonathan. There were other episodes that I loved because they were entertaining, and I often think if actors are entertained and amused, the chances are that the audience might be too.
And which was that first one that he directed? Uh-oh.
Come on, help me out. I beg your pardon? First Contact? I thought that was the title of one of the movies. Offspring!
Offspring.
Thank you very much. It was called Offspring.
Taking you back, Patrick, way back to 1987, when you were first approached about portraying Jean-Luc Picard. I know that Bob Justman was a champion, and he wanted you to have that role very badly. Were you at all aware of the scope of the Star Trek phenomenon in this country, and in what way, if you were, Did that affect you, your decision in taking the role? Were you ever concerned that that might impede your future career, that you might be so identified with this character? Was that something you thought about?
That's a huge question. I've addressed some aspects of it in the past. It was all an absurd accident. It was a fluke. It was just lottery. And when I speak to young actors, especially those who are concerned about how their careers are going, I always tell them not to despair, because I am a living, breathing example of someone whose career can be changed simply by being in the right place at the right time, which was on the stage at Royce Hall on the campus of University of California, Los Angeles, one evening when TV producer Robert Justman and his wife had signed up for a course of public lectures. That's all there was to it, and indeed Robert, God rest his soul, a fine and brilliant man, and he was my champion. He was my champion so far that I think Gene Roddenberry was prepared to fire him if he didn't stop talking about Patrick Stewart. And he was told to shut up and never mention that name in casting meetings ever again. But he persevered, and then he had in Rick Berman another one who stood beside him, and the two of them primarily were the ones that kept forcing Gene and Paramount's hand until they were just exhausted and worn out and had to sign me up anyway. Did I know what I was getting into? No. Did I know anything about Star Trek? Very little. I was a theatre actor, and theatre actors don't see much television. But I do recall when I was working first with the Royal Shakespeare Company in Stratford-on-Avon, and my son was very small, I would race home the 8 miles out into the Warwickshire countryside to give between performances on the Saturday, between matinee and evening, to maybe give my son a bath, or read him a story, or spend some time with him before he went to bed. And sometimes I would find in the background on the television there were these guys in colored pajamas, and I didn't know who they were or what they were doing. And so the first people that I talked to when this job floated onto my horizon were my children. And of course, from the moment that I met Gene Roddenberry, which was in October 1986, to the moment of being actually cast in April of 1987, I had to tolerate from them all the usual, allegedly funny remarks about pointy ears and beaming up and all of that, but it meant nothing to me. I was very apprehensive about accepting the job, because I didn't realize I had to sign a 6-year contract. We don't do that in England, and I had too many plans. I had things I needed to do. I could not commit myself to 6 years working in Hollywood, even though it was attractive, until every single person in Hollywood that I spoke to, and I knew a few people there, some writers, directors, just people who watched TV, and they all assured me, they guaranteed to me that this new spin-off of the legendary, iconic Star Trek series could not possibly work, and that I would be, no, quite seriously, there was not one exception. And they all said to me, forget about the 6 years, you're never going to make it, you'll be lucky to make it through the first season. So, come and, make a few dollars for the first time in your life, get a suntan and go home.